joins us live. Digi Plus replaces Bloomberry among the most actively traded stocks at the PSC as e-wallets comply with the Bangko Central's order unlinking online gambling sites in their platforms. We get more insights and on the broader markets with Joey Rojas, president of Eagle Equities. And the Securities and Exchange Commission wants to ensure security of tenure for independent directors of publicly listed companies. Minority Leader Tito Soto has filed a bill seeking to mandate a 14-month pay for all private sector workers amid the continuing rise in the cost of living. Under Senate Bill 193, the extra pay would be given every December 24th on top of the existing 13-month pay. Exemptions include distressed employers and companies already providing a similar incentive. Soto says the measure aims to ease financial burdens, particularly educational expenses of Filipino families. The proposed bill would be equivalent to at least 1/12 of an employee's basic annual salary. It covers all non-government rank-and-file workers, including kasambahays, provided they have worked at least 1 month within the calendar year. Now for her immediate reaction, Employers Confederation of the Philippines Chair Emeritus Engineer Nina Mangio. She is also president of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Good to have you on, Nina. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to everyone.
So what does ECOP and PCCI think about Sen. Tito's bill requiring private sector employers to grant 14-month pay to workers?
You know, that is a very good proposal or bill as far as we're concerned. But we are just worried that maybe the medium enterprises would be able to shoulder that, and that would have not much effect on their operation. But we are worried on our small and micro enterprises. Maybe even the micro can afford that, the small can afford that, excuse me. But the micro, since this comprises about 90% of our enterprises, we're worried that this might be very, very difficult for them. And considering that, for example, last year, even the 1 month, 13-month, and other incentives that were given, they were helped by SB Corp to come up with the payment needed. We're afraid that if we impose another 14th month on top of the 13th month that is already being given, it would be really very difficult for the micro enterprises and even for the small. But we don't want to be misunderstood as far as our stand is concerned. We are after the welfare of our workers.
So are you then in favor, in a way, to the proposal, maybe for the large and medium and small-sized enterprises that can manage it, to allow 14-month pay for workers, including kasambahays?
Yes, but the micro enterprises would really have difficulties. We probably just give us more time and makapag-adjust naman ika nga. Let our enterprises adjust a little because remember, there was also an increase in labor that was pronounced, made effective, I think, August or July. Na we're still adjusting to it before sana ma-implement itong ating 14.
Yes, isa po siyang panukala pa lang. It just broke about 24 hours ago. But let's pick up on the 50 peso wage hike because that became effective on July 18th. The minimum wage earners in the National Capital Region started receiving 50 pesos of an increase in daily pay. The increase had been unanimously approved by the NCR Wage Board. What impact is it having so far on employers, specifically to the small and medium-sized enterprises?
We are adjusting right now. As MSMEs are adjusting to it because especially the micro and the small ones, we really encounter a lot of difficulties adjusting to the net effect of that 50 pesos. Um, at the time that was being proposed, a lot of negotiations were made because at the time our apprehensions is more on the effect on it on our economy. We felt that it will increase our um responsibilities, inflation rates, and all that. And the majority of the micro might really have some difficulties and might slow down or might reduce their manpower accommodations or employment and might just, I should say, sort to more simpler or more less labor intensive products. And in doing so, we are reducing the probability of employment to the micro and small ones. And also, those unemployed who might be affected by the inflation would be unfairly affected by that increase. But since it is already been approved and implemented, all of us are adjusting to it.
Yun doon po sa adjustment, meron na po bang nagsara na small or micro enterprises because of the 50 peso wage hike?
Sabihin natin, they try to reduce hiring and just use maximum utilization of manpower. And retired, those with redundancy, streaming down operation. Closing down, I think, wala pa naman, or kung meron man, very minimal, but it's more of slimming down the operation.
Kung pag-uusapan naman po ang large-scale enterprises, what's been the impact? Have they also held back on hiring after the 50 peso wage hike?
I think that one was implemented even by the large enterprises. Although not so much, not like the MSMEs that are really hardly affected by this, that are really deeply affected by this one. The large ones may just have removed the redundancies, might have retired those who are retirable, and maybe reduce a little on their hiring, but they were not expected to really be affected like the MSMEs.
Okay, just as a final point po, as you're asking more time to go through the newest bill filed, which is 14-month pay for workers, how can the government ensure that any new mandates would truly uplift workers without harming businesses? Because it is indeed a very tight balancing act that needs to be done here.
What we're looking at probably is we have a lot of bills that were implemented to protect and to provide employers and employees incentives and resources. We feel that probably the government can help us in slimming down an operation and making our operation really effective by approving or by looking back on all those bills that were filed to help the MSMEs and as well as the employers.
Okay, we got that loud and clear. Maraming salamat po for your initial assessment of this new bill filed at the Senate. Nina Mangio of ECOP and PCCI. Well, the Commission on Audit has ordered a fraud audit on all flood control projects by the DPWH in Bulacan, the province that bagged the most number of deals nationwide. In a memorandum dated August 12 but only released Sunday, COA Chairperson Gamaliel Cordoba directed DPWH Central Luzon District Engineering Offices to submit documents on all Bulacan projects amounting to 44 billion pesos. Cordoba said the audit is, quote, an immediate and unequivocal necessity, citing the issues raised by President Marcos. On Friday, Marcos demanded explanation from St. Timothy Corporation over a dike in Kalumpit, Bulacan that residents say was poorly built.
St. Timothy ang kontratista dito. Kaya titingnan natin, kailangan pasagutin natin kung bakit ganitong ginawa nila. Mas mabuti pa, dapat pumunta sila rito, pakita nila gano'ng kahirap ang buhay na binigay nila sa mga kababayan natin.
St. Timothy, one of the 15 contractors that cornered 20% of all flood control projects in the country, is owned by the Discayas. Today, the family matriarch, Sara Discaya, is expected to air her side together with attorney Ferdinand Topacio. Sara Discaya lost the Pasig mayoralty race in May to incumbent Vico Soto. Soto is one of the conveners of Mayors for Good Governance, and over the weekend, his group called on the DPWH to identify contractors and politicians behind the substandard flood control projects. A total of 29 mayors have already signed the statement, including Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte and Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong. Tomorrow, the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee will launch its motu proprio investigation on anomalies hounding these projects. The inquiry will be called, and we quote, the Philippines underwater. Committee Chair Senator Rodante Marcoleta acknowledged that untangling the web of corruption would be both challenging and daunting. Senator Erwin Tulfo believes the fight to curtail online gambling addictions just beginning as sites move beyond e-wallet platforms. Tulfo, who chairs the Senate Committee on Games and Amusement, says other gambling sites are shifting to mobile apps, including messaging and shopping platforms, to attract new users. In a statement, the senator vows to work with private sector to come up with a holistic approach in addressing the issue. Tulfo's warning comes as the Bangko Central's deadline for e-wallets and similar platforms to unlink online gambling sites already lapsed Sunday. Maya said it has fully complied with the order on Saturday evening. Maya and Signal, the owner of this channel, are both part of the MVP group. As for GCash, it previously announced in-app access to e-gambling would be cut by Saturday night. The PSP order would likely affect earnings should it prolonged. Juan Paulo Collet, the managing director of China Bank Capital Corp, told Business World. He added that this could hit a snag on GCash's initial public offering. The government is setting its sights on reducing the poverty rate to single digits by 2028. The Department of Economic Planning and Development released the midterm update of the Philippine Development Plan. The target is set to bring poverty incidence down to 10 to 11% by 2027, and by 2028, the goal is to lower it further to 8 to 9%. This will coincide with the end of President Bongbong Marcos's term. This year, the poverty incidence stands at 12 to 13%. You're watching Money Talks. Coming right up, the SEC says its new rules on crypto asset service providers do not ban crypto trading. And our conversation with Joey Rojas of Eagle Equities comes next. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. U.S. markets ended Friday's session a mixed bag. The Dow hit an intraday high, but fell short of posting its first record close this year. It closed on Friday higher by less than 0.1%. As for the S&P 500, it slid by nearly 0.33%, and the Nasdaq fell by 0.4%. The benchmark 10-year Treasury yields ticked up to 4.325%. Gold prices slightly rose to $3,336 per troy ounce. U.S. futures are pointing to slight gains when the markets open later tonight Manila time. The Dow and the S&P up both by 0.1%, and the Nasdaq climbs by 0.2%. Asian markets are a mixed bag in the first hour of trading this Monday. Japan's Nikkei 225 climbs by 0.4%, and Australia's ASX 200 ticks up by less than 0.1%. The South Korean Kospi slides by 0.8%. And a quick check on the Philippine market, see how we're trading on the PSEI. It opens this Monday higher by about 0.25% at 6,331. The stock market rose Friday by 0.33% ahead of the index's rebalancing, which takes effect today. The broader all-shares index advanced by 0.2%, with the sectoral gauges mostly in the green, except for mining and oil. As for the Philippine peso, it opens today at 57.05 to the dollar, virtually unchanged from Friday's close of 57.065. And the 10-year government bond yields have remained virtually unchanged, settling last Friday at 6.007%. DigiPlus Interactive Corp, which operates leading online gambling platforms, joins the ranks of the Philippine Stock Exchange's most actively traded companies, replacing Bloomberry Resorts Corp. The PSE is implementing its changes to the 30-member PSEI roster today, following its regular review of trading activity from July 2024 to June 2025. New inclusions in the PSE Dividend Yield Index are Keepers Holdings and Pure Gold. Those removed are Figaro and URC. The Financials and Holdings Indexes welcome the inclusion of National Reinsurance Corp and ATN Holdings. Removed from the PSE Services Index is Pacific Online Systems Corp, while the PSE Industrial Index sees the entry of Concepcion Industrial Corp, Citicorp Renewable Energy, and Vita Rich Corp. Removed from the index are Basic Energy Corp, EEI, and Maxis Group Inc. PSE Mining and Oil Index, meanwhile, saw the additions of Lepanto and OGP and the removal of Benguet Corp. Let's take a look at how DigiPlus and Bloomberry are trading. It looks like DigiPlus is at $25.90 a piece. It closed Friday at $24.05 per share. As for Bloomberry, it is trading at $3.76 per share. And with us now for more is Joey Rojas, the president of Equal Equities. Good to have you back, Joey. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Cathy.
Okay, so what do you make of the rebalancing there? Bloomberry is out and DigiPlus Interactive's in.
Well, everybody is a forecaster now of what will be.
And they're getting it wrong? All right.
No, they're getting it right. Actually, they're getting it right. If you look at the rules are pretty clear naman eh. And it is pretty obvious that Digital would be in, DigiPlus would be in, and Bloomberry would be out. There was just some little, maybe some people call it hesitation in the announcement, but I think to be fair to PSE, they're not late at all. There was something in some of the other newspapers or online newspapers saying that there seems to be a delay in the announcement. But if you go back to last year, it was announced August 5. This year it was announced August 8 or 9.
Right, but it's coming at a time there's increased scrutiny. We've heard the Senate hearing that started last week, and the Bangko Sentral has been ordered to de-link the online gambling sites from e-wallets.
Oh, you're
so
talking
what
about
impact
the
then,
inclusion of DigiPlus itself. Okay.
and the timing of the increased scrutiny. So I'm thinking about the impact it may have on financial institutions that do have e-wallets that used to serve or at least link these gambling sites. What impact could it have on earnings
Well,
for those listed companies?
If you look at I looked at the Q1 statistics of Pagcor. They have about close to 40, almost 50 billion in GGR through online gaming. Maybe 80% of that goes through GCash and Maya and the other e-wallets to a smaller degree. If the fee to GCash is 1 to 3%, that's huge. So it's going to affect their revenues, top line and bottom line, of course. So I have a feeling they might not get the price that they expect in an IPO if they do it this year. Maybe they'll have to postpone again.
So how much further then of a delay because of this development?
Well, if they insist on getting the price that they want, which is like $8 billion, I think, a little higher than the last infusion from a private equity firm, right? So it's going to take a while to replace that type of income.
Now, looking more broadly, the Senate is still investigating on whether it would add more restrictions or maybe provide an outright ban. What would an outright ban do? From the lessons of POGO that was banned starting this year, what lessons do we draw from that might affect the whole industry and the way the listed firms are going to be affected earnings-wise?
From the Senate hearing, I think a lot of people were watching that last week. No? It appears that there are like 32,000 direct employees. And of course, that also affects, that trickles down along the line and that could easily affect 100,000 people. The other thing is government. Pagcor itself collects about 30% of GGR. At 50 billion, that's 1.5 billion. Oh, sorry, 15 billion immediately first quarter. BIR collects 5% directly from the 50 billion. So that's a lot of money. I hope they can government can do without it if you go into a total ban, but I don't think so. The way we're spending huge amounts on let's say flood control, which doesn't seem to work anyway. No? So I think the government has to look into where its finances are coming from and whether it can replace this type of income. Maybe it can be reduced a little. Maybe there are ways to, let's say, maybe lessen the impact on families. I had an idea. I don't know if you want to listen to it. If the family, let's say, for example, somebody logs in. If somebody logs in, there should be a message immediately sent to the wife or to the parents or to the so that they can talk to the player and say, "Hey, tama na yan."
Right. So you're proposing more restrictions, creating more friction to make it more difficult, but not an outright ban. But the impact that the POGO ban did have on the allied industries, because we've watched property, logistics.
I think
those sectors even
I think
recovered
property really
from the POGO
felt
ban?
property is the one that felt a big hit, no, from the POGO ban. And then of course around the area, the retail and the residential, because all of these were vacated, no? And then rents have dropped, I think, significantly.
Looking at the broader markets, we're looking for catalysts here. I know that the Bangko Sentral is holding its policy meeting on August 28th, but we've really been bouncing around a very tight range. Looking at PE ratios, looks quite cheap at 10.9x. When you compare that with the 5-year historical average of 17.3. Why are we not piercing through a certain level here? And the market looks indecisive at this stage for the last 10 weeks.
One is really because of the interest rates are still high. No? The other one is I really I saw your headline about the SEC and the crypto ban on crypto. No, I haven't read the actual article yet, but I'm a little saddened by that because I think one thing that can get this market moving faster and higher and getting more attention from the general public is a ban on crypto. Because it does not do anything at all for the Philippine economy. Zero. There's nothing. There are no taxes. Well, there could be capital gains taxes if you go after them. But whereas the stock market, a healthy stock market, can raise capital for a lot of industries. If volume goes up, volume will attract more volume. More volume will bring up prices. A higher price will attract more companies to list because they can get higher valuations for their stock. And I think that's the way to go.
All right, so one more item to watch there is crypto, the crypto market. Thank you so much, Joey. Appreciate the insights as well. Joey Rojas of Equal Equities. And the Securities and Exchange Commission wants independent directors of publicly listed companies to have security of tenure. SEC Chair Francisco Lim said they are studying a new memorandum circular on corporate governance. This proposal seeks to protect independent directors during their 9-year term so they can freely speak on company policies. He also vowed to strictly enforce the term limit and end exemptions. The SEC is in talks with the PSE on listing select government-owned and controlled corporations. Lim said only worth-listing firms will be considered to avoid risks for investors. Currently, no GOCC is listed on the local stock market. And speaking of crypto, as Joey mentioned earlier, the SEC says its new rules on crypto asset service providers, or CASPs, do not ban crypto trading in the Philippines. The rules instead require platforms to register to protect investors and ensure market integrity. In an advisory, the SEC said all platforms must first obtain registration and licenses before offering services, stressing this will protect investors, uphold market integrity, and create a level playing field. The CASP rules, which took effect on July 5th, apply to both local and foreign entities offering crypto services in the country. The corporate regulator urged all platforms to register and comply, as it has the authority to act against unregistered entities. This may include measures to restrict access to non-compliant platforms. And in corporate news, PLDT plans to cut its capex to the 50 billion peso level by 2026 while maintaining its lead in the telecom industry. On the sidelines of a financial briefing last week, PLDT CFO Danny Yu told the Philippine Star the telco is targeting a capex intensity of 30 to 32% of revenue next year. Today, PLDT covers 97% of the population, allowing it to reduce spending without losing market leadership. Yu said the company will continue expanding its network, but the lower costs through better deals with vendors. PLDT is also aiming to become cash flow positive by next year by cutting expenses and maximizing revenues. And before we go, some of our very own anchors and artists were recognized at the 8th Philippine Empowered Men and Women of the Year Awards. Among the awardees were News and Views host Angela Lagunsad Castro, TV5 Chief Election Analyst Edson Guido, and MQuest artist Pearl Gonzalez. Awards Guru of the Philippines and RDH Entertainment Network CEO Richard Hinola said the event honors outstanding Filipinos in their respective fields. The ceremony was held on Saturday, August 16th in San Juan City. Congratulations to all our awardees, our fellow kapatids in the network. That is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. here on One News. Have a great day ahead.